Well, hello there. Welcome to another music breakdown with your humble host, Phil Freeman here. Today is a special music breakdown. Today, I am going to be giving you an analysis of a cover that I just recently did and posted of Rip and Tear by Mick Gordon from the Doom original soundtrack. You know, that crazy video game killing zombies and all these nasty demons and stuff like that? Well, yeah, I decided to throw together some lyrics and do a vocal cover. And there's a lot of inspiration from some incredible artists out there. And it's something that I wanted to bring to the world and challenge myself to see if I was able to do it. And what you see on that cover is the result of that. But I promised that I would do a breakdown of how that was possible, and that's what this video is today. Further note, this is being shot roughly 24 hours after that performance was filmed and recorded, just to prove that those types of sounds can be done without damaging the vocal folds. I am right back to my basis, right back to where I would be able to do the same thing again right now if I wanted to. It is possible to do that. And that cover would have not been possible without a few people. So I just want to do some shout outs to some great inspiration. Will Ramos, his one-take vocal playthrough of Lorna Shore, that was an incredible thing to witness. And I did a breakdown of that about a year ago and have learned so much from the community since posting that video. So thank you so much to everybody who watched that, who also corrected me on things in regards to my analysis. It was very enlightening. Alex Terrible from Slaughter to Prevail, one of the best false chord vocalists out there in the metal scene. It's insane to watch what he's capable of. He's been an inspiration, so thank you, dude. The charismatic voice for her breakdowns of so many amazing artists. And Elizabeth, thank you so much for being a great friend and for doing such a great service to the music community. It's been a whole year, essentially, of seeing how far I can push this instrument without hurting myself and seeing if I can integrate this type of artistry into what I do as a teacher, let alone a performer. That's the reason why I did this one-take vocal playthrough, to see if it was even possible, which it is. And now I'm going to bring you what I have been able to learn over the last year, along with over a decade of teaching experience, along with over 2 decades of performance experience behind that, and bring it to you in this breakdown video today. If you liked that cover, if you like this video, be sure to like it on the YouTubes. Also subscribe to the channel for more breakdowns coming your way. There's also a free class that I have here on YouTube, which you can find in the cards right now and in the description down below. Go check out that free class, learn more about your voice, get the fundamentals of how this instrument works, and get back to me when you get through the class and see if it makes a difference for you. I would love to hear your feedback. So, without further ado, everybody, we're gonna break down how it was possible for me to make a bunch of really disgusting and nasty sounds while covering Rip and Tear with original lyrics. Hold up, one thing that I do want to say before we get into the breakdown here is that before you do any of the stuff that I'm about to break down today, that you will consult an ENT, a laryngologist, and or a primary care physician before you attempt any of these sounds, because they're dangerous. And if you don't know what you're doing, you could really hurt yourself. Also, consult your voice instructor. Make sure that they give you the green light before you go off and do any of this stuff. I would hate to be the reason that you hurt yourself. Now, we'll go ahead and dive in. Thank you. All right, everybody, I'm ready if you are. Let's do this. Check. Where's the headphones? So if you want to see the full cover, the description is down below. It has the link. It's also in the card up above. First and foremost, the biggest thing that I emphasize to screaming students whenever it comes to that low, it has a lot to do with the shape of the mouth and also the shape of the tongue. The vocal phonation, it's actually more of a right around that area. That is the basis. For a lot of my false chord screaming, because if I go any lower than that, the phonation becomes less vertical, less stretched across the vocal folds, and it becomes actually more dangerous to try to produce a lower tone. It gets looser in here in the vocal folds, which that can promote the nasty stuff like vocal nodes and all that nastiness. You want to make sure that there's good phonation in the vocal folds as your basis with everything else rattling around it. So, and then a switch into fry scream. There is a lot of modification of the tongue shape there. So like, for example, that's almost like bridging between a chest voice and a head voice. That's essentially what's happening in the background. You see that evolution there. So it goes from false chord to a head voice type of situation with the fry screaming. It's very similar to bridging the gap between chest voice and head voice. And you'll notice that there is a lot of examples of that through this cover. So let's keep going. Else I want you to notice is the larynx position on these false chord screams. It's very low, as you can see. It's down low. You can see the Adam's apple. And notice what happens when you go up into the fry scream for those higher pitches. You'll see that this modifies. See how it popped up there. So this is something I emphasize to all of my students when it comes to this, is flexibility within the larynx. Being able to put yourself in such a position that allows the voice box to go up and down in a very flexible and a very comfortable way. The more flexibility you can develop here by using the muscles down here in the torso as well as the muscles in the face in conjunction to help work with the movement here, the easier it's going to be for you. So slide exercises, for example. All of those are really, really good, even in chest voice, for you to do to develop more flexibility in your range and in your instrument itself. So that way you can go from a super low larynx position to a high larynx position without hurting yourself. So let's keep going. By the way, if you have any questions, send them down below. A lot of things that you'll see, specifically Joe Bad from Fit for an Autopsy does this a lot, where he lifts the tongue to the roof of the mouth. No! So it kind of adds this like different element to what's going on with the scream itself. It adds a different filter and a subtone as you do this. And that really works well with like mid-tone phonation. So like around a G4, A4. So that type of phonation lends itself well with bridging, like, you know, lifting the tongue up there and scooping it up towards the roof of the mouth and exposing the teeth, being very aggressive. So let's keep going. And I'm moving my hands a lot, kind of as a guide for myself. So that way I look very angry there. Oh my goodness. This was just yesterday. Side note, this was a project 3 days in the making. I decided, you know what? I'm going to cover Rip and Tear and make lyrics. I spent 15 minutes writing the lyrics. I spent about an hour total in the 3 days that I decided to do it, just laying out what I was going to do vocally, and then an hour and a half where I could be nice and loud, and voila, this is the result after maybe like 3 or 4 attempts. So there you go. So essentially the takeaways from what's going on here so far is a lot of transitions of low larynx positions and high larynx positions and a lot of vowel modification in order to make all of this work. Also, breathing is a huge part of this. You'll notice that I take a lot of time to stack the breath and make sure that I have enough air to work with and that I'm positioning my instrument in such a way that allows the streamlining of the air to occur. One that I use that is pretty effective is an air horn analogy. The air horn has a small canister and a relatively small horn, but the sound of it is so loud. It's because of the way that the air is compressed. So that's how I want you to think about your instrument as you're developing these types of techniques. It's about the way that you're positioning each and every mechanical part of the instrument in order to make these sounds. This is way more about a relaxation game rather than a tensing game. That's something I need to make sure that is emphasized as we're going through this, that the compression and the EQ and the reverb is doing a lot to enhance the sound here. And that's what is done in a professional setting on a regular basis. It's industry standard. In a stage setting, in a live stage setting, you'll see the live microphone being put right up to the face. And there's a reason for that, because there isn't as much compression and EQ on those microphones as, say, on a condenser mic in a studio. So just keep that in mind as you're listening to this as well. So let's keep going. So that right there. Again, the phonation of the vocal folds is right around there, right around a B3, A3, B3. It's not really that low per se in the vocal range for a male singer. But it's because of what I'm doing with my lips that makes it sound way lower, just like what I'm doing with this. Just like what I'm doing with my speaking voice right now. I'm making it sound way deeper just because I'm pursing the lips.
I can make it sound way more nasally if I go up like this.
So keep that in mind as you're developing your screaming tone, especially with false chord screaming, and be very careful that your vocal folds are not phonating at a pitch that is lower than comfortable. You'd be actually very surprised at how high the phonation and the vocal folds are for some screamers, for most screamers for that matter. Why do I look so intense in these? I guess I am an intense person. It is what it is. It's weird to do this, but it's for the good of everybody that's watching this, hopefully. So, that said, all of that was Fry. All of that was Fry, which had a head voice mixed tone behind it. That's essentially what's behind it. Like that sound is actually, I would debate and argue that is an easier sound. A Fry scream in a higher pitch like that is easier to do than a false chord scream, and probably a little bit safer. If you would have argued that with me about a year and a half, 2 years ago, I probably would have been like, no, false chord scream is like way easier. It all depends on the person. But as I started to realize what a Fry scream is and how that is somewhat similar to a head voice, I realized that a Fry scream can actually be done much more easily and at least for me and the observation of what I've seen in other screamers, it is a little less taxing on the voice box. So that is something to keep in mind, that if you're looking for which one to start with, either false chord or with false chord or Fry, maybe you should try Fry first because it's easier to pair that with a phonation that is not as taxing on the voice box, let alone the entire instrument. Let's move forward.
I've lost everything,
right here.
so I have nothing left to lose. Because you took everything and there's no way for you to choose.
I want to call myself out. I should have had better head position there rather than doing this. The only time that you can really get away with that is when you are in what's called your passaggio. When you're in the sweet spot of your range where it's very comfortable for you, you can get away with a little bit of this. I probably shouldn't do that in the future though. Calling out myself on that.
There's no place that you can hide, nowhere for you to go. Retribution is upon you, and your future is a broken throne.
And for anybody who thinks that there's any pitch modification, sorry, that's not the case. But you never know these days. You never know. Everything you see, let alone hear, might be fake. Who knows? Anyway.
Let alone a bleeding body and another fractured skull. Decapitation of your demon crown, which I'll hang upon my empty walls. I'm losing all composure. I can't get any closer.
Something else that I will say, as I'm doing the singing parts, and what you'll notice in other breakdowns that I've done, where there's a transition between clean vocals and distorted vocals, you'll see that the jaw movement is actually much faster with the distorted vocals than they are with the clean vocals. There is a reason for that, because we want to get things out of the way for clean vocals. So we want this to be slower and smoother movement here, and also slower and smoother movements inside the mouth to allow for a clean passageway, to allow for clean projection of the sound of your voice if you're going for clean vocals. And then the fast jaw movement, you can get away with that because you want to put things in the way of the phonation. You want things to rattle around and get crazy. So you'll see this devolve into that here pretty soon. So here we go.
Insanity envelops my rage-soaked brain. So bask in the exposure, I won't go any slower, except when I want to inflict.
So that was the transition.
Except when I want to inflict.
I was going
Walls.
into it with...
I'm losing all composure. I can't get any closure. Insanity envelops my rage-soaked brain. So bask in the exposure. I won't go any slower, except when I want to inflict.
You still break it top. Okay. And then I was psyched, trying to hold in my excitement. But okay, the reason why I was able to hold out that note for as long as I did at the end, why it would have been much more difficult for me to do with false chord, is because, again, there's less going on with the fry scream. So the basis of that is with a head voice behind that. Wow! And then once you modify the tongue position, it makes it sound much nastier and actually creates streamlines within the mouth and different subtones because of that position. It changes the direction of the air, of the sound pressure that's coming out of your mouth, which therefore creates a much nastier sound. But you could probably do this for a relatively long time, but what makes it sound impressive is the twist of the tongue, which then creates more compression inside the mouth and allows you to do that for a long period of time. So That's it. Hope you enjoyed this breakdown. Hope that I covered enough in this breakdown to give you some food for thought as you continue this journey. I will say this, that if you do decide to go on this journey, that you consult a voice coach one-on-one in person to make sure that you get a customized plan on how to move forward with this type of stuff. This is very dangerous to go in this on your own. You should consult an ENT laryngologist before attempting any of this stuff. This is done by a professional, and you should work with a professional if you are attempting to do any of these vocals right here. So just a reminder that you please do that before attempting any of this, okay? Work with a coach. And if you're interested, and if you like what you heard and you liked this breakdown, well, guess what? I have been teaching for over a decade now. If you want to book a session with me, link is in the description down below. Link is up in the card. I got a free voice class going right now, and I just want everybody to be able to do what they want to do with their voice, whether it's metal, whether it's country, whether it's opera, whatever. I just want people to have joy when it comes to their voice and their singing, and that's what I'm here to do. So that being said, everybody, thank you so much for being here for this breakdown of my cover of Rip and Tear. I hope you found it useful. I hope that you learned something today, and that you will go and have some fun with your voice. Make sure that you talk to that professional before you go do any of the stuff that you just witnessed here today, and I will see you in the next breakdown. Peace out. Thank you.